This episode really feels like a continuation from On the One when it comes to Amethyst's development, since that she doesn't want to be made, or mainly be made in the way that she's in. And to tell you the truth, I really felt like that this episode continuation, centering around Garnet telling Amethyst that she needs to figure out the solution on her own, really showcases on the fact that the amount of times that Amethyst has been poofed numerous of times in this episode reformed. In this episode, a corrupted gem called the Slinkler, which is a nickname, is roaming around inside Amethyst's room, so Garnet, Steve, and Amethyst need to work together to stop the Slinkler, but unfortunately, whenever Amethyst says that she's going to stop the corrupted gem, Garnet says that she never does because she never acts on it. As far as I'm concerned, the majority of the episode centers around Garnet and Amethyst arguing with each other when it comes to Amethyst not doing what she's supposed to do when it comes to her stating that she is going to do it. But at the same time, throughout the majority of the episode, she ends up getting poofed multiple times with different body-changing results. As far as I'm concerned, when I first watched this episode, not remembering it really shows of how I didn't pay attention to the message of this episode itself, and the reasonings of Garnet having different body changes over time. I think that the purpose of her poofing and reforming multiple times is the fact that, as an Amethyst, she is completely different in comparison to the Rose's, Paws, and Rubies and Sapphires. As far as I'm concerned, every time that whenever I see Amethyst gets poofed again, only for her to reform, but with a different body design, it showcases of how Amethyst would be like when it comes to forming into different body designs. Because let me tell you, the dynamic between Garnet and Amethyst in this episode really indicates that since that we knew that Garnet is a fusion, and this leads to Amethyst being poofed in reform multiple times, it kind of shows that Amethyst is really incapable of being a better person, but at the same time, she will have different results while the results themselves are completely different. I'm going to assume of how the ending is structured, well, she got reformed for the final time. It really indicates that Amethyst can't be able to improve or change as a gem, aside from her shirt being black and her pants being gray, which is just a color swap when her original design was a shirt that is gray and her pants is black. The only difference is that the stars on her knees are black instead of the color of her skin, or the color of her gem skin, or whatever you call it. The intention of this episode centering around Amethyst having different forms aside from the final form is probably the fact that she wants to be like Garnet and Paul. And when I say probably is because even though when she acts out on being Paul and mainly a stronger form of herself, it's not going to work out at the end with the amount of times that she keeps getting poofed, all the while having arguments with Garnet. Believe me when I say this, knowing full well that Garnet doesn't understand Amethyst that much, knowing full well that she has knowledges of what Rose does during her time with her, I'm going to be perfectly real with you that the Amethysts in this show are really one of those types of gems that really feel the most extinct in comparison to the other gems like Ruby, Sapphire, and Pearl. Granted, they're not extinct, but what I mean extinct is mainly the fact that Amethyst is literally the only Amethyst that we've seen so far from this show. When it comes to Garnet in this episode, in comparison to Pearl from On the One, knowing full well that Pearl is trying to grow a relationship with Amethyst despite the problems that they have with each other, the relationship between Garnet and Amethyst is mainly better, but at the same time, they still have problems when it comes to Amethyst not being good enough, since that the forms that she keeps getting is something that Garnet is really against, knowing full well that it's not really right for Amethyst to have these different forms in order to be like Paul and Garnet. I'm literally with Steven when he feels numb the amount of times he sees a gem poof multiple times and reform multiple times. Even though that Amethyst poofed 3 or 4 times and reformed 3 or 4 times, it really feels like a new for Steven to actually witness Amethyst instantly getting these experiences, considering that she is a different gem in comparison to Ruby, Sapphire, and Pearl. I know I separate Garnet when it comes to Ruby and Sapphire, but at the same time, since it's a fusion of Garnet, I need to actually prove my points on the fact that Garnet, despite being a fusion, is mainly a different person in comparison to Amethyst and Pearl. What makes this episode unique is the fact that they didn't successfully stop the corrupted gem. And considering that it may happen off screen, it kind of indicates that Amethyst just isn't the type of character that will be able to stop a corrupted gem on her own, since that Garnet had to learn that the hard way, even though that the hard way itself wasn't that severe. I'm sure if anyone was in Garnet's position where they have all the answers, they won't be able to have all the answers when it comes to Amethyst being reformed, poofed multiple times, or the other way around of poofed and reformed. Because let me tell you, this episode indicates that Amethyst is a completely different gem in comparison to Ruby, Sapphire, and Pearl. And every time I think of how the ending is structured, especially when they didn't capture the corrupted gem, which shows that all the crystal gems don't have all the answers to everything when it comes to those solutions. But at the very least, they have qualities that makes them better, since that they don't usually do everything right if they have disabilities and disadvantages. Which is why I'm giving this episode an 8 out of 10, and probably one of the most underrated and really good Amethyst episodes.